podcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
Bandwidth for All About Android is provided by CacheFly at CacheFly.com.
This episode of All About Android is brought to you by Ting.com. Ting is a new mobile phone service that makes sense. Save money with Ting. Pay for what you use. It doesn't require a contract and offers unlimited devices on one pooled plan. To save $25 on your first Ting device, visit allaboutandroid.ting.com. That's allaboutandroid.ting.com. And by 99 Designs, the world's largest online graphic design marketplace. 99 Designs connects businesses seeking quality, affordable designs with a community of 200,000 graphic designers. Visit 99designs.com/AAA to receive a free design consultation. That's 99designs.com/AAA. Hello and welcome to another episode of All About Android, episode 113, recorded on Tuesday, June 11th, 2013. We're your weekly source for the latest news, hardware, and apps for the Android faithful. I'm Jason Howell.
I'm Ron Richards.
I'm Gina Trapani.
Trapani.
It's a me, Gina.
Excellent. I'm going to really work hard on that one.
Really
I like
We're
to
really
pronounce the
embracing
names the way they're
Gina's
meant to be.
Italian heritage. So yeah,
Should have never said anything about that. Regretting it.
But I appreciate that you did, Gina. Well, we're stoked to be here. We're also very stoked to bring onto the show Brian Klug, senior smartphone editor at Untitled.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for having me on.
It's awesome having you on. I'm so used to saying Untitled, it's going to take me a little while to pronounce that properly. Untitled.
Right. And we've learned that Brian is a stickler for pronunciation.
Oh, yeah,
So,
totally.
so we need to make sure that the names are pronounced correctly. So we'll do that, Brian, just for you.
Totally.
Well, it's great to get you on. I've always really appreciated the reviews, both that you do and everybody, the entire staff at Untitled do. You guys really spend a lot of time getting into the nitty-gritty that some of the other reviews don't seem to touch on. So it's great to have you on board today.
Thanks. Yeah, it takes a while, but it's worth it, I think. Hopefully.
I think
people
so.
read it.
Absolutely. We have a lot to discuss, as we seem to always have a lot to discuss every week. This week, we're going to be talking about Google's Waze purchase. We've definitely talked about Waze on the show before. Although I checked our previous apps in the arena, it was never an arena pick.
Interesting.
I was surprised to see that.
Slipped through the cracks.
Not sure how that.
You could have chosen it in the arena this week and gotten away with it.
I suppose so,
Yeah.
but
Well,
it's,
there you go. Not working hard enough to game the system there.
Yeah,
Jason.
that's okay.
So, yep.
I'm okay with what I picked.
right.
The Symbiosis of Technology. Does that sound kind of intriguing? The deconstruction of fragmentation, one app at a time. It's getting deep in here, isn't
very
it?
heady on the show this week. I don't know if I'm prepared.
We might be overpromising at this
Yeah,
point.
well, we'll deliver.
Yeah, so much more. Let's waste no more time. Let's get right into the news. All right,
Let's waste no more time.
Waze no more.
See what I did there?
I might have to write no more time. Okay, there we go. All right, Waze, the social mapping service that you may or may not have heard of already, was bought by Google for I think it's estimated $1.1 billion.
I feel like that's the new go-to price for
Billion
Tumblr-
dollars.
Well, no, 1.1 billion. Like Tumblr was bought for 1.1. Like it's
Facebook
like
was one.
Yeah, true. Yeah, but they want to be more than one.
They want to step it up,
Yeah.
crank it up a notch.
Anyway.
This after news had hit on different occasions, actually, in the last couple of months, where both Facebook and possibly Apple, I think Apple was kind of discredited, possibly vying for that acquisition.
I thought it was going to be Apple, to be honest with you.
Did you?
Yeah, it's just because their Maps application has gotten so much,
Yep.
criticism and that sort of thing. It sounded like they needed to add somebody on there. So I was, when I saw that they got discredited, I was like, oh, that's too bad. That would have been a good purchase. But anyway.
Waze crowdsources information, basically location data, if there are stops along the way, so sales can appear on the map, which usually means up-to-the-minute information on obstacles that might slow down your trip from point A to point B. That would be pretty handy, I think. And, Google's map and navigation system is already really impressive. Let's start with you, Brian. What do you think? Do you think this is something that's going to be folded into navigation? I know early on they plan on keeping it separate and kind of operating side by side. When does this all fold in and become one mega awesome thing?
Well, I think like Google really values all these data sources, and like currently when you're running the Maps application, they're kind of like sending back a position vector with, like what's your velocity? And maybe that gets batched up and sent. It's not really clear. But obviously with Waze, they can get more real-time information since, like their users operate under the expectation that it's already being shared. So I think initially they just want to clean up that data and have more, like real-time sources that, feed into this traffic information. At least that's the impression I got reading about it. And then obviously, inevitably, it's going to get folded into Maps somehow. And whether that means that the same social features remain or it becomes like Google Plus, which is what everybody was sort of speculating. I don't know. Like, obviously, that's anybody's guess. But I would hope that there's long-term vision for what happens to Waze because, obviously, that's a very popular service. Like, I know lots of people who don't use Maps at all, either, on Android, like the Google Maps service, or Apple Maps. They just use Waze. Yep. And in some ways, not having this cross-platform application anymore, like if it gets folded into Google Maps, that's a big loss because it's sort of platform agnostic. But I think Google just wants it for the data. Honestly, like they're really after all that data, and having people drive around, it's essentially doing your job for you or doing Google's job for them. So I don't know if that's worth 1.1 billion, but it's worth something.
You gotta imagine that they'll fold it into Maps somehow. Like whether it becomes a data source to feed in the traffic patterns or all that sort of stuff, or there's got to be some sort of aspect of the technology and that sort of thing. I can't imagine they're going to buy it and let it exist and have somewhat competing products. And Maps is, especially with the new maps that they rolled out at Google I/O, you got to imagine that they're looking to improve it at every step of the turn, and maybe there's some long-term thing. I guess the luckiest thing is that it hasn't been immediately shut down like Sparrow was when Google bought Sparrow, so and that's probably due to the loyal user base.
Yeah, you do that right out of the gate, and you destroy half the value, exactly. A lot of the value of that Waze has in the first place. Yeah. Gina, what do you think about the social aspect being folded into something like Google Plus? Obviously, Google's social network.
Yeah, that seems inevitable, right? This is a weird thing to me. This struck me as just Google's kind of swallowing up a competitor. I honestly didn't use Waze in depth, but does it do anything that Google doesn't already do?
That's exactly what I was going to ask.
Yes, is this
no.
just another 50 million users who are just going to feed Google data like you guys were saying? This felt to me like, let's just get these guys because we have $1 billion laying around in the bathrooms here at the Googleplex, and we might as well swallow up a competitor.
And is it the kind of thing where if they don't buy it, then Apple will instead of block Apple from getting
measure.
it? Yeah, possibly.
Yeah. Maybe.
Who knows? I don't know. I feel like $1 billion is a lot to spend on defense, but that's just me.
Google,
maybe it's Google. They got it. Yeah.
They found that on the floor,
Yeah, it's interesting that they found that on the floor. It's interesting that they're keeping it around as, it said that they'll maintain their community brand, service, and organization. So they're going to run it as a kind of a separate company, but then just not as a separate company, but as a separate organization or brand, but then just have that data fed into Google. That sort of makes sense, right? It would make sense for Google now. It would make sense that maybe slowly they would turn over sign in into a Google Plus sign in, but just keep Waze as its own brand if it has this separate user base. Yeah, but it struck me more as a like, hey, let's just these guys are doing good work, more data source, more users. Let's just bring them into the fold.
It could be new blood into the Maps world. Like maybe they're approaching it from a different direction, and clearly we've seen that they want to change up Maps, they want to evolve it and grow it, and so yeah.
Well, Waze has that awesome user reporting feature. Like that's their big sell-in is that it's sort of collaborative. You get points. It's gamified traffic management or like gamified routing. And, they don't really have that sort of corpus of data that, maybe even OpenStreetMap has in some regions. But in regions where they have people driving everything and reporting stuff, I think that's the real value. And the reason that they'll keep it around, at least for a while, is probably because they can't initially put all of that collection stuff into the current Maps app. So they need to keep ingesting it through this other side. Maybe it gets reported in the normal Maps app and the Maps, like web interface. But the collection side remains on this Waze app, operated as Waze.
I think you might be right with that, Brian, only because it would be kind of off-putting if suddenly Maps became this like uber social kind of
like pushing
thing
you,
that they just suddenly, hey, we've got a
yeah.
social network in this Maps utility that you've gotten so used to just using for specific information. Yeah. And like you said, Gina, a lot of this kind of already happens already. Google might not know specifically that there's an accident up there, but Google knows by means of anyone running their Android, Maps app and suddenly hitting a slow spot, and everybody that's doing it hits that same slow spot, that there's an obstacle there. There's something that's slowing down the traffic and could potentially, navigate around that automatically. They said at I/O that that's kind of coming in the next version of navigation for Android. So, yeah, I think you might be right.
Did you go to that awesome session where they showed their Maps tool and how they build the stuff? That was like the best session ever. I was like, are you revealing too much? They showed their internal tools. Yeah, they showed how basically they have operators that are trained, sort of like trained monkeys. I'd imagine it works kind of like Mechanical Turk. They're just given small tasks, and they just route things. They have an overlay. They have access to all of the Google Street View data. They look at signs, and then that's how they gauge, computationally and additionally with these people, these operators, how they're going to lay out the grid. And that was fascinating. They didn't show all the real-time data they collect, but the rest of the stuff, I was just blown away.
Wait, they have an army of actual humans, like changing routes and like entering traffic patterns? Like,
and
that's crazy.
They vet the changes that come through the map builder tool, too.
Oh, wow.
Those were real humans. It's kind of crazy.
That are... Yeah, so you have that user generated, like people manually entering, hey, there's construction here, right? But then they can cross-reference that against the speed of all the users passing that space. So there's somebody checking those things. That kind of makes sense. Although it seems like that could kind of be automated as well, right? You got multiple reports from humans and then from users and then show data.
From mortals.
It's just such an anti-Google, like it's just an unbelievable thing to do,
Absolutely. That's crazy. Yep. I would not have guessed. Anyways, cool stuff, I'm sure, coming to one of definitely has long been the big differentiators on Android.
Well, I look forward to future Google I/Os or Google speculation when people ask, what are you doing with Waze? So it'll be, what are you doing with Motorola? What are you doing with Waze? So that's going to be that's the next
Hopefully
question.
we don't have to wait that long to find out.
We don't have to Waze that long.
Oh, man. It's happening. It's a bad dream. I need to wake up. Gina, save us.
Google has reversed its decision to shut down their Caldav API, just as a kind of a new angle. So back in March, when Google dropped that bombshell blog post where they were doing spring cleaning, which involves shutting down Google Reader, which is the thing that everybody was really upset about. In that same blog post, they mentioned that they were going to shut down the Caldav API to Google Calendar. Caldav is an internet standard for accessing, calendar data on a remote server. And Google said, you know what, we're not going to support the Caldav API anymore. The Google Calendar API should be enough. If you want Caldav access, you have to ask for it. We'll add you maybe to a whitelist, and it'll only be for approved whitelisted partners. Well, they reversed their decision today. They said they're going to keep Caldav around. After all, it was supposed to shut down in September, but they decided to reverse this decision. They said that they got enough developers who had legitimate use cases for the Caldav API that wouldn't work with the Google Calendar API to justify them keeping it open, which is
cool.
Pretty cool that they're listening. Although it's one of those things where it kind of gives you a little bit of hope, like maybe if we make enough noise, they'll keep Reader alive. But that logic doesn't really make sense because they were going to keep Caldav alive, but just for whitelisted users. Reader, they're cutting off entirely.
And there was a lot of fuzz around Reader. There were a lot of people very vocal about the whole Reader thing.
Those are two very different applications. Reader is a consumer-facing, UI-based front-end type thing. Well, this is clearly whitelisted, powering applications, API use, much easier to maintain. But I'll enjoy people hoping that they'll keep Google Reader around as we should start the countdown to Google Reader dying.
Yeah,
we should find out what day it is. Is it like July 7th or something like that?
It's next month, it's July something.
Yeah.
There's also an argument that Caldav is a standard, right? And the Calendar API is a proprietary Google Calendar API, and that Google's had some. Google's generally pretty good has a lot of empathy for developers, and they talk the open talk, so they got to kind of walk the open walk. And I think they got in a little trouble with the XMPP stuff with Hangouts. So maybe this is their way of being like, okay, we're listening. Fine, you can have your Caldav.
Fine, have your open standards.
Fine. Have your open standards. Exactly. It is the Caldav API is going to change a little bit. You're going to use Oauth 2 Authentication, which is what developers use to authenticate to any Google API, and it's going to show up in the regular Google console for developers who use Google APIs. So that's a new thing, but that's just like how you access any Google API. So nothing surprising there.
Excellent.
Cool.
Something big happened yesterday.
Yeah, so the elephant in the room. We debated a little before the show whether we were going to cover this at all. But considering Brian's with us this week, and considering that as I was watching the Apple presentation at WWDC, as I often do, they got to the iOS 7 update, and I'm watching it, and I'm going, wait a minute. This looks awfully familiar, as many Android enthusiasts probably did. So we wanted to touch on the fact that Apple released or announced iOS 7 at WWDC earlier this week, and iOS 7 features a brand new, basically reskinned UI for the iOS platform, and they rolled out some new kind of elements to iOS 7 that Android users are kind of saying, hey, that looks familiar. First up is that they launched a what they call a command center, which basically is very similar to the notification pane and control center that Android rolled out with Jelly Bean.
Kind of. I mean, really though?
Yeah.
I mean, maybe not to Jelly Bean. I could see it. I mean, if you really wanted to compare it to something that looks a lot like it, the TouchWiz kind of pull-down notifications.
Well, not so much the look, but just the aspect, like the interaction and just what you can do with it. Where you can control Wi-Fi, you can control all that sort of stuff. Right. Now, keep in mind
having instant access to those things.
Yeah. Now, keep in mind that these are and Brian. I mean, you can check me on this. These are generally phone-based. Like, we all need to control our Wi-Fi. Yeah. And to say that Android had figured out the way to control Wi-Fi really isn't fair to anyone else trying to develop phone OSs. Do you agree, or?
Right. I mean, like it's everybody's going to need quick toggles. So I mean, that's a common complaint that's been around with iOS for a long time. And it was like specifically like we just need something like SP settings.
Yep.
So obviously they went and sort of did that. Like last time around, they copied the thing, or I don't want to say copied, but they sort of emulated the functionality of the quick post tweet thing, and like the UI was almost the same. So I mean, it's obviously analogous to how it works in Android, but the UI there is totally different, at least like superficially. Now, obviously things like the lock screen.
Well, yes.
Lock screen,
moving down to the lock screen. So they added a lock screen as well as lock screen notifications, which are both conceptually and executionally. And actually, Brian, if you scroll down a little more on the bottom, the main lock screen one,
probably like 5 or 7 more photos below that.
Scroll all the way down. But yeah, so here we're looking at Droid Life, which has a pretty good breakdown. One more, there we go. There's the lock screen.
There we go. Yeah. That's the famous one.
And so now it wasn't so much. I mean, yes, a lot. We all need a lock screen and that sort of thing, but some of the elements got eerily close, like this one.
They went with this one is really
the thinner font style and just little things like that made you realize that, like, yes, these are things that every phone is going to use, but they're kind of close. But hey, this is from the company that copied the GUI from Xerox back in the day. So why should we expect any different?
I mean, derived inspiration from.
Right. Yes, derived inspiration from. But so as part of the rest of the announcements, they had the lock screen notifications. They rolled out a new version of Safari that allows you to scroll through the tabs, admittedly in a different way than Chrome does in a slanted kind of 3D way, but still same concept. It added multitasking, which is, I know, something that a lot of iOS users have been screaming for, and admittedly added a unique way that's actually very similar to the old HTC way that they did it before they scrapped it in the old version of Sense.
Which was similar to the WebOS way before that. So.
Exactly. See, everybody iterates.
Yeah, exactly.
They also rolled out a streaming music service competitor to Pandora or to Google Music All Access, which, by the way, my trial ends tomorrow. They sent me a little email reminding me. It's been a month since it was announced. Or it's ending soon.
It was a month ago already? Yeah.
Wow.
Seems like yesterday.
Yeah,
I know.
So, anyway, so they rolled out iTunes Radio, and they also rolled out a new Mail app, a new Calendars app, which, again, these are all kind of core functionality to the phones, and there's little similarities in terms of whether they're drawer boxes on the left or swipe to trash and that sort of thing. So, a lot of the Android faithful are screaming foul that they're copying and that sort of thing. I chalk it up to these are core things that we're going to do, and everyone's going to make their, they're going to design it in their own way. But if anything, Apple is just following the current trends in mobile design, which is a flatter, slimmer, cleaner kind of design aesthetic, which I think is happening across the board, not just at Android, but also like if you look at Windows and all that sort of stuff, you got that same aesthetic. But that doesn't leave the Google Android faithful to go to Google Plus and cry foul. And over on Google Plus, we're getting lots of amusing little comparisons, little memes. So here we've got this one that says Matthias Duarte saying they even copied the colors of my shirt.
Which, I mean, it's true. They obviously did.
Yeah, so here's making fun of Johnny Ive saying, the simple question, how do we make it more like Android? This one,
I know this one's kind of
Fast and Furious, there you go. And the last one that we're looking at here,
this is kind of the direct.
Yeah, Gustavo Rangel originally posted is just kind of a straight comparison of the various different things and kind of poking fun at Apple, quote unquote, innovating. So that said, I mean, Brian, what do you make of the iOS 7 update, and how does it compare to Android?
I think obviously there's sort of a baseline set of features that everybody's realizing they need for a smartphone OS, and whether or not the UI and UX is directly copied or not, that's sort of like anybody's subjective guess.
Totally.
Obviously, some things are really close, like the lock screen, especially with the light font there and the like circles, and it's a live wallpaper and it kind of reacts. That one is kind of just like it's really surprising to look at. But I mean, the rest of them, I don't really know. It's not as close as I'd expect. Obviously, Apple is sort of famous historically for taking things and then doing them better. I don't know if this is the final way that it's going to look either. Just playing with the, looking at the beta, and looking at the screenshots, it's clear that some things have to change. And honestly, the biggest thing for me, like with that lock screen, is that it's hard to read. Like, look there's light text on a light background.
Yep.
And like, how is that going to play out? Like, I don't necessarily know if that's going to end up being the end design. But yeah, everybody, I mean, like, again, WebOS had this, and then like HTC borrowed it, the like the multitasking interface. And if you stick it horizontal, like they do in the stock version of Android with the multitasking interface, like, is that drawing inspiration from WebOS? So, I mean, obviously these core design elements, everybody's sort of taken and then iterated on. I don't know if it's copying. I think it's entertaining. I don't know if it really like tells you anything. But I mean, obviously they're gonna sort of get to the same level. Like if it's radically different across all these platforms, then it's not really doing a service to the user. I don't know. It's difficult to say. Obviously, things like the Pages and the Safari versus the Pages in Chrome, that one also is just like, it's really close, right? But
well, yeah, and
I don't know.
I mean, and that's the thing where going back to it, where everything is iterative. Like you said, everything evolves, and then how many different ways can you make it to browse between tabs? I mean, I'm sure they can. How much of it is trying to innovate for the sake of innovating versus picking up a device that has proven to work and just using it. It'll also be interesting with a lot of the lawsuits, the Samsung lawsuit, and kind of the copying kind of accusations that are going on. As this stuff evolves and it starts to get more and more similar, and things get mixed in the middle, what is a proprietary design concept versus an execution that everyone just agrees is a?
And do they just kind of let it go
exactly,
at that point?
Yeah.
Now, Gina, you've been playing around with it. You've got the developer kind of version of iOS 7. What have been your thoughts, being kind of sitting on both sides?
I do. So, I develop an iOS app as the iOS version of my Android app. So I've got this developer iPhone, and I installed iOS 7. And, for me, like, I really separate functionality and aesthetics. Like, I feel like it makes a lot of sense that the different mobile operating systems are converging on a particular set of features that everyone needs. And no one wants to swipe the same notification away on multiple devices, for example. So notification sync, both Android and iOS, just got that. That makes a lot of sense to me. I want to adjust the brightness. I want quick toggle controls. That makes a lot of sense to me. I'm bummed. I don't think that the story is about copying, but I am bummed that the aesthetics. So functionality, I'm fine with everyone converging on a single set of features. It's the aesthetics, everyone converging on the same design that bums me out. Like, so Windows Phone now looks like Android, now looks like iOS is just like, I like that things sort of differentiate themselves, but through look and feel. So I mean, if flat design is the new thing, it just feels like everything kind of looks the same, which makes me sad. Listen, we've talked about the whole sort of Android or iOS fangirlism. Like, I don't think this is about them copying. There are certain things that they did really well in iOS. For example, the control center, there are sliders to change your brightness, for example. The slider's right there in control center. Unlike with Android, when you pull down, you have to tap on brightness and then the slider comes up, right? So some of the things that they implemented are better. The flashlight app is right there in control center. And a few other things. So I think that Apple is really, really slow to implement what seem like very basic features, because I think that they mull them over and they iterate in secret for a long period of time. Like, they bake things for a really long period of time before they release them. So I'm always sort of fascinated by what they come up with, right? Because I know that a lot of time and thought has gone into them. Whereas I think that Android has more of the open source culture around it, where it's like release fast, iterate quickly, do it all in public. So from a product design standpoint, like that's all really kind of interesting to me. So yeah, I think iOS 7 is interesting. There are things about it that I really like. It's interesting to me that Google, that Android's design, that it looks a lot like Android's design. So it's like, oh, this is the new good design, I guess. But also makes me sad that there isn't more differentiation.
It's something interesting in terms of that like collective aesthetic concept. Whereas because we know, I mean, there's a good case to be made that Apple locked themselves in Cupertino and Johnny Ive and his team have been working on this, and they've probably been ignoring everything else. Maybe there's somebody who's looking else what's going on. But is this just the general look of these next couple of years is going to be the thin font, flat design?
Yeah, is this the auto tune of?
Sure, auto tune. Okay.
Right. Auto tune made in the music world has a specific stamp on a certain period of time.
Yeah.
Admittedly, we're probably still a little bit in that. But
but even going back to kind of a design aesthetic, going back to like the 2004, 2005 when drop shadows and bevels and rounded corners came into play, and we joked about that time period. Is this just another chapter in design? I don't know. It'll be interesting.
I think there's total truth to that.
Yeah,
I think that's a really good point.
I'm surprised I saw the comparison made to like Windows 7 Aero Glass, or I guess Windows Vista.
Yep.
And I like that comparison the most, because there are definitely some Aero Glass kind of things in there, with the strange like blurriness 2D overlay thing.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
So I mean, obviously kind of everybody borrows from everybody else. And it's kind of weird in that the desktop kind of moved to this flat paradigm, like Microsoft sort of did. And in that case, it's kind of weird because like arguably Windows Phone 7 started this whole like 2D flat, over lots of animations, minimal hinting, that sort of thing. And like, what's the evolution and convergence of this? And I feel like we're really close, really close to having this common UI. And I'm not sure that it's going to make everybody happy. So like all the people that were saying, oh, iOS needs a redesign. Well, be careful what you wish for, because now you're going to have to live with this.
Mm-hmm. Well, and Brian, you make an interesting point about going towards this like kind of culture of unified design. We're still not at Star Trek yet, where everything is a unified design. We're not all in the cars yet. And like that's my whole thing about technology, is that we've got so many people competing, and so that we've got all these different kind of standards and looks and stuff like that. We need to get to the utopia of one approach that works for everyone, and then we can go explore the rest of the galaxy. So there you go.
I do think it's interesting, Brian, your point about Aero Glass means that Apple has done it again. They've taken something that didn't quite work the first time.
Oh, right.
And they've made it work.
Yeah.
Aero Glass.
That's a good point.
It's all the rage these days. Let's take a quick break and thank one of our sponsors, Ting. What is Ting? If you haven't heard me talk or Ron talk about Ting on a previous episode of All About Android, I'm going to tell you a little bit about it. It's a no BS mobile phone service. It's an MVNO reseller of the nationwide Sprint network, and it's very different from a lot of the other companies that you might normally think of when you think about getting a mobile phone. No contracts or early termination fees. There's no bundling or ride-along services. No overage charges or penalties. If you use more than you thought you would, you just pay for what you used. Credits on unused service. So if you use less than you thought you would, Ting actually drops you down to the level you hit and credits the difference to you on your next bill. really, really nice and fair in that regard, especially. No add-on charges. So things like voicemail, caller ID, tethering, hotspot, three-way calling, call forwarding, all those other features are all part of the service. So you aren't going to pay any extra for those services. No mysterious line items on your bill. Their bills are just incredibly easy to maneuver through and really understand what you're looking at. No hidden charges or recovery fees, none of that. Unlimited devices on one plan. So you can actually have as many devices as you want on one plan, sharing pooled minutes, pooled messages, megabytes, all of that. And each device on a plan costs a flat $6 per month. A powerful online account control panel that lets you take control of your account, take a look at your usage, your bills, all in one powerful kind of online control center. No-hold customer support and excellent customer support at that. 855-TING-FTW is the number. Anytime between 8 a.m. and 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, a real person is going to pick up the phone and actually talk to you when you call. And they just have excellent online support as well for those who just want to do it through the web. Active customer forums, simple and powerful help ticket system, tutorials, video tutorials. They just have a lot of stuff online that'll help you as a user use their service to its full potential. So here's how it works. First, you purchase your mobile device from Ting. You're going to receive it in 2 to 5 business days, and then you'll activate your device with Ting. You actually have the option to select a new phone number, or you can port one if you have one that you don't want to get rid of. Finally, you can select the monthly minutes, the messages, the megabytes. They have all these different plans. They have this whole grid that you can kind of go through and piece together your ideal plan, and it ends up coming up with an amount. So 1,000 minutes, 2,000 messages, and let's go 2,000 megabytes, and 2 devices on your plan. It's just very easy to go through and pick exactly what you have, and all of that together would be $80 plus surcharges. That's it, $80 for all of that for 2 devices. So it's just really easy to get a sense of what Ting can offer you. So you can do this yourself. Go to visit Ting today at allaboutandroid.ting.com. And you can use, take a look at what I just did. Check out their savings calculator. You can see how much you or your company can save by using Ting. And actually have a sweet little deal. All About Android viewers can also save $25 on your first Ting device when you sign up. So go to allaboutandroid.ting.com to get that $25 savings, and you can start saving today. Ting's pretty darn awesome. We hope you'll check it out. allaboutandroid.ting.com, and we thank you so much for supporting All About Android and the Twit Network. You guys are great.
Let's get a little hardware action on.
Yeah, hardware, boom, boom, and then boom.
So those of you with long memories might remember last year when Samsung came out with what was it called, the Samsung Galaxy camera, which was basically a camera running Android. And I think we did joke about it. We talked about how, wow, it's running Android. It's got a camera. Why don't they just throw a phone in there? Right. Well, it looks like Samsung made that evolutionary step.
Potentially.
Potentially. And what we've got here is the first kind of leaked images of the Samsung Galaxy S4 Zoom, which, if you look at it closely, it's a camera with a phone on it.
Yeah.
We heard you like cameras, and we heard you like phones, so we put a camera in your phone. But yeah, so the rumor is that the Galaxy S4 Zoom will be at Samsung's premiere event in London later this month on June 20th, alongside some of the other new products they've got coming out, like the Galaxy S4 Active and the Mini. And the rumored specs really aren't that impressive. It's a 1.6 gigahertz dual-core processor, 4.3 QHD display, a 16 megapixel camera, 8 gigabyte internal storage, a micro SD slot for expandable storage, a dedicated shutter button, which is pretty cool for you.
Need that on
shutter
the camera,
bugs. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And is running Android 4.2.2. So it looks like they're testing the waters of this hybrid phone / camera. Hey, we thought the phone tablet thing wouldn't work, and look, we were wrong there. So clearly Samsung might be onto something.
All
Who knows?
these mashups.
Yeah, we'll see how that goes.
I don't think it's a bad idea. I think it's actually pretty great for someone who really takes a lot of photos with their camera. They say the best camera you have is the camera you have on you.
It just goes back to the same thing with the Galaxy Note. Is someone going to hold the camera up to their head to take a call?
It's their phone. I suppose they will.
Yeah.
I don't know. Either of you thinking about getting one of these if it ends up becoming a reality?
Oh, Brian's nodding.
Heck yes. Heck yes.
Yes.
Oh yeah, definitely. So I have Galaxy camera still somehow, and I don't know, because I'm formerly an optical engineer. Connected camera is something really near and dear to me. And at present, there are really only like 3 connected cameras. And I mean like good ones that are functional. There's only 2 that are running Android. There's the Nikon like S800C, which is terrible. Like the UI is horrible, but it's an interesting first step, and Nikon takes a long time. And there's like I don't know what SoC in there, but is in there, but it's not very performant. It's like Android 2.3. Galaxy camera, of course, is just like an international Galaxy S4 minus the phone, but with the camera bolted onto it. And then I consider the PureView 808 to be a connected camera as well, because Symbian isn't usable. So it's effectively a connected camera. And obviously going to like just having a phone that's a camera as well is, you know, like Samsung's MO. They like to test the waters with weird form factors that maybe don't make sense. And so I'm really curious to see what happens, because that was kind of like my feedback, was that I just want to make calls from it. Like I don't mind carrying it around because it fits in my pocket. It's a little tall, but it's just like a Galaxy S4. I mean, it was like a Galaxy S3 last time, so this will be like a Galaxy S4. I don't know what SoC is in it, considering that it's 1.6 dual core. I mean, it could be Exynos 5250. Who knows? I mean, it could have a bigger battery in it. What's curious to me is that I don't see where the zoom like lever is. You know, like it's S4 zoom, but like there's the camera button, there's this metal thing around it, but like how do you zoom? You know, like I'm looking at it, I'm like, I don't see the zoom lever anywhere.
Is it gonna be on the touchscrreen itself, on the phone itself? Is there gonna be?
Know.
Yeah.
I mean, like, are you supposed to use those volume levers to do it? Like, I just don't understand.
Well, honestly, I wouldn't be surprised, because it doesn't look like there's a viewfinder on there either. So you're probably using the back display as the viewfinder, and so then I imagine you're gonna pinch and zoom to do the zoom. I know we're speculating, but yeah.
Yeah, but in this case, hopefully it would be you're pinching and zooming, and it's actually moving a motor that's doing real zoom and not the digital fun stuff.
And the issue with Galaxy camera last time was that it was sort of like a smartphone sensor with like similar 1.4 micron pixels, and then this zoom on it, and it was stopped down. You know, it wasn't a very fast aperture at all. So I would hope that this time around it's a competent point and shoot as well. Not to say that like it wasn't before, but it just could have been a lot better, even though it had OIS and sort of like features that you expected. Mm-hmm. And like Samsung is unique in that they have a point and shoot business, and they also have a smartphone business. So ostensibly, you can get the two to work together and make something that works well, as opposed to like Nikon, who doesn't have a smartphone business, right? Or like if you look at the other side of the spectrum, maybe like HTC or Apple, who don't have a point and shoot business or like this camera expertise, but have sort of been thrown into it, and they're like quickly evolving their camera UIs, trying to come up with something that makes sense. So that's why I think the S4 Zoom is really interesting, and hopefully, I hope we do see it, and I really want one, just because like the Galaxy camera was crazy because you could sort of tweet these full res pictures that were awesome from your device. You could upload them to Dropbox. Stuff for me, like when I buy like a $2,000 DSLR, I don't have GPS, which blows my mind because like I used to shoot weddings, and you'd have a second shooter. If you didn't synchronize your clocks before, all the photos were out of order. So then you have to go into Lightroom and like put this offset. For me, I'm looking at this and I'm like, that's $1 worth of like components to stick a little GPS in there. I don't need it for geotagging. It doesn't need to be that great. I just want the clock. So that's why like the smartphone side of things is already leaping ahead of these other bigger, like established players that want me to buy like a $200 hot shoe thing. So I can't use a flash to run GPS, like just like this doesn't make any sense. Mm-hmm. So that's what's cool about it. Not to say the least that it runs Android. So we'll see. I don't know. I think it's cool. Who knows what it's going to cost?
I'm really happy.
That's a big question.
I'm really happy that you were on the show today while we're talking about this.
That was quite the analysis. I'm impressed, Brian. That was great.
Well, I haven't formally written about it, and like I still have it, just because like there's again like it's not going to be super positive because a lot of people that have it now are like, oh, the point and shoot isn't that good. But like the second iteration, I feel like could be very strong if they do these things right. Mm-hmm. And I could see myself using that as a phone, occasionally. Like I never really call. Nobody ever calls me. I'm always just like send a text message or email. So maybe you look weird putting it to your head, but I mean, you look weird putting the phone pad or the Note to your head too.
Agreed.
So, just deal with it.
Yeah, if you're buying it, you don't care about that.
You get a headset or something like that. Yeah,
Definitely the utility more than it is the look of you using it in that regard. You're okay with it if you're putting down the money. I guess that then leads to the question of, are enough people are going to be okay with it to make it something that Samsung continues to do.
It still looks funny.
It looks funny.
Yeah,
it looks funny. Even like sending a text message, like that bulky thing on the back, like I just feel like I don't even know what that would feel. I feel like I would feel like I was texting into a shoe, because like on the sole of a shoe.
It's like Get Smart.
Yeah.
It's really weird to tweet from Galaxy Camera. Like holding that thing portrait doesn't feel right.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
It's hard to type for the reasons you mentioned. I mean, that's why I want to see the front of this, not necessarily like the back and the screen.
Yep.
Because like the back and the screen, it's going to be an S4.
Right. And it totally does. That the Techtastic photo, the right-hand side one, you could literally cut off, like obscure the bottom half of that picture, and it looks like an S4. You obscure the top half, and it looks just like a digital camera. It's quite literally they sandwiched them on top of each other. So
interesting. We'll see.
Stuff.
I'm more excited about the S4 Active, to be honest. That thing looks cool.
What the S4
because it's like a better design.
Yeah, that one is
Why
interesting.
didn't that make it in here? I don't think we actually talked about that on the show. What excites you about that one?
So that's like it's semi-ruggedized. It's waterproof to 1 meter for 30 minutes. It's sealed. It's dustproof. It's an S4, essentially the Snapdragon 600 version. So APQ8064AB, 1.9 gigahertz. It has hardware buttons. It's like a better S4. Like, look at the back. It looks awesome.
The screws, it looks really secure.
Even if it isn't like metal, the screws, like it just looks cooler. And even though it's a little bit thicker and has an 8-megapixel camera, it's waterproof. And that's the question I always get when I'm telling people, like, oh, buy this or that. They're like, well, is it going to survive if I drop it? Mm-hmm. And I feel like this has more of a chance, to say nothing of being waterproof. And also it has an LCD display. So like I don't like AMOLED. I think all of the benefits you get from AMOLED are imagined and just marketing speak. Which I'll just be brutally honest with you. That's the truth. Because I at least for me personally, like people love seeing oversaturated colors, but the consumer is wrong. Like they don't know what they like. So in that regard, I would rather have an LCD. And I think the real reason that it's LCD, which everybody was debating, is because you can't push AMOLED very bright. And if this is an active product, it's going to be outdoors and underwater and like in dirt. So there's just no way to make AMOLED go to 600 nits without burning watts. And obviously with an LCD, you can do that, no problem. So anyways, I like the S4 Active. I haven't seen it or held it. I think somebody got one. I think GSM Arena has one. The battery's still removable, even though it's waterproof, which is cool. There's like a rubber seal.
Interesting.
Yeah, and it's got a removable SD card too, and it's still waterproof. So, and the headset jack they said was waterproof too, so you could like listen to music while swimming, like doing laps or something. If you've got those headsets, that's always really cool. I just like doing that because it's like you're listening to music underwater until the novelty wears off. But
yeah, right. Still, that's pretty darn cool.
They better have this in the box. Like those waterproof headsets.
So then it sounds like some interesting things to look forward to on June 20th at the Samsung Premiere event, where most of these things are expected to be officially unveiled. And I'm happy you brought up the S4 Active because it leads perfectly into the Sony Xperia Z, which is kind of Sony's rugged-ish, at least waterproof device. What's the news on the Xperia Z front?
Yeah, this is the phone that you can pour water over.
Right.
Well, rumor has it, or at least Android Central says that their sources confirm that there will be a Google edition of the Xperia Z handset. So Google is expanding its Play Store Google edition offerings. We really don't have any details. We don't know price. We don't know availability. But yeah, you can pour water over it, and it'll be in the Play Store.
That's fantastic. I want to get that phone purely just to do that. Every day, I'm going to pour water on my phone.
I seriously, I want to start listening to podcasts in the shower now that you brought up swimming and listening to music. Like I'm like, oh, I want that. I mean, listen, I just dropped my Galaxy Nexus and the battery, like the back of it came flying off and it totally shattered. And so I have a new appreciation for the need for for phones that can handle actual real life. At some point we have to stop treating our phones like this delicate piece of glass, right? So yeah, exciting. The Xperia Z will join the Samsung Galaxy S4 and the HTC One in the Play Store. Sounds like maybe soon.
Cool. I love that the trend continues. Every time I see this kind of headline, I'm like, yes, keep doing this.
Google's stocking up. Yeah.
I love that this is an option and continually more and more an option. So that's great. Gaming. So have you ever felt like you need to run iOS games on Android?
Sure.
Yeah?
Why not?
Sure, for the sake of this little intro. BlueStacks heard your call and is bringing it to their soon-to-be-released set-top box gaming box as a competitor to systems like the Ouya. Game Pop is offered for free through the end of June, the console and controller, with a $6.99 per month subscription. After that, the console is going to sell for $129. That subscription actually gives you unlimited access to 500 plus Android titles at launch, as well as any iOS games that enter their library. You may be wondering, how are they bringing iOS into Android? iOS developers, all they have to do is change the in-app payment system to either use Google or Amazon, and then BlueStacks handles the conversion through their API-level virtualization technology that they call Looking Glass. BlueStacks, if you haven't heard of them before, already has experience bringing Android apps to Mac and PC in a similar fashion. No official launch date yet, although I think you can, like I said, sign up for it now and get it for free with the monthly fee. What do we think? Is this interesting? I think it's interesting getting iOS on Android. Wonder how long that's going to last.
It's the kind of thing that clearly they can do it, and if they can sell it, it's that nobody else is doing it, so that makes sense. It's a way to widen access. So if you don't necessarily have an iOS device, you can play it. So I see that, but I don't see it taking off and becoming the next big thing. Maybe that's just me. I don't know.
Yeah. Anyone here super pumped about this? The three of us that are on every week, we aren't huge gamers, so maybe we're the wrong audience here. What about you, Brian? Does this interest you?
I'm interested in how it works. That sounds rather intriguing.
Yeah.
I wonder if they're emulating, or I guess it's all native code and some weird combination.
Yeah.
But I don't really know. I wonder how performant all the games are. That's what I'm curious about.
It sounds like something Apple will shut down instantaneously, right? Right, because they have to be interfacing with the App Store somehow, and this doesn't seem like a thing that Apple has open.
Yeah,
there's no API for that.
Right, no, there isn't. There is not.
Yeah, I can't imagine they'll be too happy about this.
Strange. Well, speaking of gaming, though, going back to CES when Nvidia launched the Nvidia Shield, we've been very curious about what that experience would be like and how that would be. And luckily enough, we stumbled upon a hands-on review of it, and it happens to have been written by Brian.
Boom.
So there you go. Look at this.
Heck yes.
So Brian, tell us all about the Shield, Brian.
So, it was formerly Project Shield. Now it's just Shield. Pre-orders went up. I got a chance to play with the final hardware yesterday with Anand as well. And really, it's come a long way. A lot of the issues that I saw in, the CES hands-on, where it was very much a prototype, have been sorted out. And even at I.O., NVIDIA had Shield hardware.
Yep.
But it reflected, the final appearance, but not necessarily the final, tuning of all the buttons, the final, controller feel, the final functionality in Android. So almost all of the things that, kind of I said, and everybody else said, there were a lot of small things have been addressed. Specifically, the D-pad was kind of squishy before. Now it's much more communicative and clicky, and it works like a D-pad. I'm still not quite sure if it's a hat switch, which is what everybody complained about with the 360 controller. So if you press top right or bottom left, those wouldn't necessarily get actioned all the properly. Analog sticks have been tightened up, more resistance. They feel really good. Obviously, all the main buttons feel really good. The triggers and bumpers are, much better. They sort of have a very clean break. The bumpers and the triggers don't feel mushy like they did before. And obviously the materials choices are better. It's sort of what you'd expect. The evolution of product from this very early stage to the final one. And I know controller people feel very strongly about sort of every little nuanced, ergonomic decision. And in this case, there was a lot of concern that because you're basically holding a battery and a tablet, and there's like more batteries than the iPad in this thing, like whether it was going to be heavy. And there's an active cooler in there too. There's a fan and heatsink, but it's not something you notice. Like surprisingly enough, like the fan kicked in on mine, but unless like I was in a totally silent room, I couldn't tell. And it doesn't get warm.
That's good.
The ergonomics, even though it's got a battery, it's not stupid heavy to hold. Honestly, they come a long way. The question is, like, are there enough AAA, like high quality titles on Android to sort of carry this thing? Because obviously NVIDIA is then reliant on like the platform of Android to do its gaming experience. And they say they have like 30 some titles that are optimized for Shield. Really anything that supports the controller profile will work with it. Bigger concern for me is that because it's only landscape, and that's sort of like a marginalized view in Android now, there's a lot of places that, like the UI designer hasn't made like a landscape view. So you get dumped back into portrait and it's like, what do you do? And that's sort of unfortunate. That's like an Android problem. And it became sort of apparent using this that's even more of a problem now than it was, like back in the Android 2.3 days when people had, more phones that had QWERTY keyboards, and now because that's gone, it's really noticeable. But I don't, honestly, for the price, it's really competent hardware. Like you're getting basically a Tegra 4 reference tablet that also happens to be a cool controller that can do these things like play with, games on your PC and act as a remote and then stream like the video over. Like I was playing Borderlands there, which was flawless. Like you couldn't tell that it was running on the PC in the same room. It looked like it was running on a handset. So that's interesting to me. But honestly, what's bigger for me is that I kind of wish NVIDIA would make a reference phone, like just make me a phone. It doesn't have to be Nexus, just stock Android, sell it, support it, run the latest BSP on it, and sell it directly and just do an end run around the operators because they're the cancer that's killing mobiles, and see what happens. So like that's what this is, and like without the cellular component. So that's, I don't know, it's interesting to me. I don't know if Shield is the be all end all. I think we have to see. And it's sort of still early. I wish that this was launching, maybe with Android 4.3 or whatever we end up calling it, even though I think it'll be 4.3, with the gaming APIs and all that sort of stuff. Like obviously Play Service has been updated with these APIs already. But if it was sort of like packaged that way, it would just be better for them. And I find myself wishing that was the case. But it's come such a long way. And even I/O, like that D-pad was really mushy and like the analog sticks didn't have enough resistance. It feels like a 360 controller, which is sort of like my benchmark, my baseline for like what a good controller is. And I can't feel the heaviness. Like it doesn't feel heavy. It's kind of weird because like your hands rest in this like flat sort of tray, which isn't like a normal controller. Like I have a 360 controller, and when I hold that, it's like I kind of curl my hands as opposed to like laying them flat. And when you're holding Shield, like they're flat. So I don't know. It's interesting. Time will tell.
Is it the kind of thing that you can throw in your bag and play on the plane? I mean,
yeah.
You feel comfortable carrying it like, on a trip or something like that? It's not too bulky, that sort of thing?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, it's no more bulky than a normal controller. I mean, you're going to take up that area anyways. Yeah. It's obviously thicker. Like the hinge is way better. It feels sturdy. Like I wasn't worried about breaking it. And one of the people even said like they dropped it, and it still works fine. So I guess it's past the internal NVIDIA drop testing. So
right. Well, it's called the Shield, so thankfully
it better like stop bullets or something.
Yeah, exactly.
I would love to get my hands on it. I'm looking forward to playing with it. It's just so wacky. I just like this, like putting the display and the tablet display on there, just like crazy. So I like that.
Yeah.
So cool.
Interesting hardware.
Just because it's something new.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're seeing a lot of that kind of cool, new, haven't quite seen that before, interesting take style stuff in Android. That's part of the reason why I love Android. It's just all over the place, and if you can think it, you can build it. So great take on the Nvidia Shield, Brian. Thank you for doing that, and thanks for writing the awesome article. Check it out at unontech.com if you'd like to read the full review. It is there. It's just kind of one example of many of the kind of detail and scope that you guys do with your reviews of hardware specifically. It's really impressive. Let's take a quick break before we get into apps and thank our other sponsor of today's episode, 99 Designs, helping you out with all of your design situations. So basically what 99 Design does is it connects you with great graphic designers that help you create fast, affordable graphic designs. You tell 99 Designs what you need. Dozens of designers from their community will submit quality designs. So it's community driven. That's what kind of the power of 99 Designs. They're created just for you. Those designers, you can give them your feedback about what they've given to you, help them refine their design, and then select and pay for your favorite. More than 210,000 graphic designers worldwide are available to work on your project. World-class customer support 24/7. Complimentary design consultations with the SF San Francisco design team for your branding needs. 100% money-back guarantee. You can do things like logo design, web design, digital marketing collateral, print marketing, apparel design, clothing, mobile app design. You've got a great idea for an app, but you're just not a designer. 99 Designs can hook you up with designers that can help you kind of get across the visual language that you need out of your design. We actually here at Twit use 99 Designs to help do a logo design contest for a shirt, for some of our shirts, and you can see it up right here. We actually picked the winning design from 99 Designs, and we sold a lot of those shirts. It's kind of a one-off, kind of limited time offering of this design. It was created thanks to the community aspect of 99 Designs. The results were just awesome. So if this sounds cool to you, if you have a need for design and you're just not the designer type yourself, here's what you can do. You can start right now for as low as $199 for your own custom graphic design. Just visit 99designs.com/AAA. You're going to get a $99 power pack of services for free. A power pack actually gives you more designer time and attention. 99 Designs will actually bold, highlight, and feature your design project in 99 Designs Marketplace, and you'll get nearly twice as many designs as a result. You can also call 800-513-1678, designated for our Twit listeners. That's 800-513-1678. One more time, 800-513-1678. Or you can visit 99designs.com/AAA today. Thank you, 99 Designs, for your support of All About Android and the Twit Network. Great having you on board. Thanks. So let's waste no more time. Let's get into apps. All right, Gina.
Google Keyboard is now available. Google has actually unbundled the stock Android keyboard that comes in Jelly Bean and is offering it through the Play Store. So folks who have Android 4.0 and above phones that maybe the carriers have installed a different keyboard, who just want the stock Google keyboard experience, can now download it for free from the Play Store. It just came available this week, and I think it's already over a million downloads. And this keyboard, as we know, has kind of the sliding mechanism to do entry. It's got a few different dictionaries, including emoji, which we covered last week. And this is just kind of the standard stock Google keyboard experience. And this is kind of a trend. Google has been breaking out, has been kind of decoupling a lot of its core apps and offering them via the Play Store as well as kind of Android. So when Android first got released, there was the operating system, and then there were the core Google apps. And it's funny, because Android's open source, I kind of assumed that those apps like Gmail and Google Calendar were part of the open source project. They're not. They're closed source proprietary apps, but they used to ship with Android phones. Now they come through the Play Store, and the reason why is because Google can push updates to these core apps separate from operating system updates. And also people who are getting Android phones that aren't necessarily Google Experience phones or Google Edition phones can get those kind of core apps. So, I mean, at this point, Google's probably got the most downloads of the most apps of any app maker, which kind of makes sense, right? I guess Gmail, Google Calendar, Chrome, Hangouts, YouTube, Google Search, Voice Search, Sound Search, Maps, Earth, Google Plus, Google Play Music, Books. Well, that's all Google Play Store, Google Currents, Google Wallet, and now Google Keyboard. And I got a hat tip to Computer World for breaking down kind of all the apps that Google has decoupled from Android. A few apps that they have not decoupled from Android yet and offered to the Play Store: the Camera, Gallery, People, or the lock screen. Although I don't know if the lock screen counts as an app.
I threw that in there only because, I mean, there are a lot of lock screen replacement apps.
That's true.
So why wouldn't they have the Google?
Yeah, like it's possible. I don't see why Google wouldn't.
Or perhaps the launcher, right? So like
the
Google,
launcher.
The launcher,
Yes.
that's a big one. Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised if Google released a Facebook Home like Google Plus specific launcher.
Yeah.
And of course they just released Google Play Services, which is its own app, which gives developers access to APIs inside of Android, which users can get updates to from the Play Store more rapidly than operating system updates, right? Because operating systems updates get caught in the sort of manufacturer carrier delay hell that causes fragmentation. So this is kind of, on an app by app basis, this is one way that Google is trying to make the fragmentation or reduce the fragmentation problem. And I'm all for it. I love it.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, I do too. It's great. It definitely helps to kind of, if you're locked in those carrier overlays, at least you can pretend like you're not. If you really wanted to and install a lot of these things, hopefully they continue doing that with their other apps.
Well, speaking of being locked in, so when Google Music All Access came out, and there's a lot of hubbub over people abandoning Spotify or RDO or the other streaming services to go to Google Music, one of the biggest kind of complaints I heard was that, I won't be able to get my playlists. I set up all these Spotify playlists. This isn't necessarily an app, but it applies to use within the app, within the Google Music app. Leave it to the nerds to come up with something to hack together a solution. Portify came out, which is available on maui.at/2013/06/Portify. And basically, I'm sure if you Google Portify, you'll find it. Basically, this is a little desktop app that utilizes Google Music and Spotify to basically build a bridge and import your Spotify playlist into Google Music. Very cool. Important to note that by using it, though, you are going to violate the terms of service of Google Music and Spotify, so use it at your own risk. But if you've got a ton of Spotify playlists, you want to get them in your Google Music app, this is a great way to do that. So look up Portify and good luck with that, because sometimes they get a little kludgy, but I'm sure it'll be fine.
Yeah, exactly. The mileage may vary.
Yeah, exactly.
But I'm sure there are a lot of people.
That's the general warning, but I'm sure there are people using it. And if you're in a problem, go to the site. I'm sure there's some support there. So
sweet.
Cool.
Sure, that helps some people.
So you got an interesting app.
Well, I'm trying to continue doing the thing where, if you're a fan of the show, you follow the show, and you also design and create apps, send us an email, aaa@twit.tv. Let us know about it. We'll go through every once in a while, and we'll highlight some of them that we found. I was playing around with this one, and I wanted to show it off. So first of all, Lior, L-I-O-R, Lior.
Lior. I don't know.
So apologies, Lior. Says, I enjoyed watching your show. I'm a developer myself and would like to introduce you to my app. It's called NILS, and it's a lock screen widget for Android 4.2 that displays notifications. It has many great and unique features that other similar apps don't have, and it's free. So I wanted to take a look at that, and I can kind of show it off here real quick just to give you a sense. I've been using it for about the last 5 days, and basically, so this would be kind of my touchdown screen. Now, it was Dashclock, right? Dashclock is the one that we've heard a lot about. It has all these different plugins and everything. Dashclock, I found, didn't give me enough information at a glance. Like, I turn on my lock screen, I want to see some like actionable information immediately. It would tell me you've got 5 emails, but I almost always have unread emails in my inbox, so that doesn't do a whole lot for me. What this does is, if I pull this down, it gives me essentially a history of my notifications.
Wow.
So I can have them there, and what you can see up here right now is that I've got some of these that I could read. The Daily Gizwiz, SD video completed encoding. Basically all of my notifications that appear up here, it gets logged on this screen. If I pull that down, I could actually clear it away by hitting that the same way that you would on the notification pane. It's definitely customizable. One thing that I would love to see, just as like temporary feedback real quick here, is I would love to have the notifications that are currently available sync up with here, because the way it is right now, it all kind of tacks on as they come through, and then if you clear it, they go away. You can also change it so that once I kind of go through to my main OS, it clears it and it starts over again. But I would love a way for it to always have whatever I've got up there always showing on the lock screen. That would be really, really helpful. But anyways, it's just kind of another way that if you've got 4.2, well, now you can't see it because I just cleared the notifications, but if you got 4.2, it's another way to kind of make it a little bit more maybe useful based on the notifications that you receive. See, I just got another email. Just came through. Cool. So there we are. So that is notification, NILS. There we go. NILS. Just do a search for that. NILS.
Notification in lock screen, maybe? Yeah, notification lock screen. Yeah. So very cool.
Yeah.
So get that in the Play Store. Go support it. He's got 50,000 to 100,000 installs already. So
that's awesome.
Yeah, good job.
That's a good tier to get to. Yeah.
So,
excellent stuff.
Awesome, Lior.
All right, let's not waste any more time. Let's get into the arena.
So many enter, but only one lives. Android Arena.
See, there's just so much about that animation. That's great. The rolling of the R. I just love it. Isn't it great, Brian? Isn't that good?
That was awesome.
Yeah, thank you. I say thank
Way
you
to
like
put him
I
on
did
the
it.
spot,
Yeah,
Ron.
No, that was extreme. I liked it.
He's like, no, I actually thought, all right, you're on the show. So last week, real quick, before we get into the awesome apps last week we had 4 awesome apps, or 2 great ones and 2 that people didn't really care so much about. Duolingo comes out ahead. Gina, you are on a roll.
I am on a roll. Sweet.
Yeah, and with authority, 60% of the votes for Duolingo, which, you have to agree, it's pretty darn awesome app.
That's a very cool app.
It is a great app.
And Giganticon,
Shocked at
however you want to say it.
Shocked at Giganticon, and the developer behind Giganticon got in touch both with us. He emailed me directly, so that was very cool, and he's super psyched to see so many people dug it. So, and I got some people. One dude on Twitter posted a screenshot of his home screen that he resized all his shortcuts with Giganticon. It was pretty cool. So
yeah, and we actually got a few emails from people just saying for accessibility purposes, this is an awesome app and not just a joke app. So
see, there you go.
A lot of people found value in Giganticon. Obviously, it was second place, 25%, but still got quite a few votes. Toka Hair Salon, come on, haircuts. Okay, maybe not. 8% tied with Vine for 8%.
Wow.
So people felt the same about Vine
Poor
as they
showing
did for
on Vine.
Toka Hair Salon.
Vine.
Yeah, Vine. Well,
The hair salon was cool.
It was cute. It was cute.
It was really cute.
It had no chance up against your guys' app. All right, so mine's going to be super quick. But I thought it was very timely. Gina, what did you think about the iOS 7 feature that is the background that kind of shifts a little bit with the icons on the top of it?
Yeah, the parallax.
Parallax.
Yeah, I like it a lot. I actually really, it's a very, very subtle thing, but it does make you feel like your phone is made of layers, flat layers. It's extremely subtle, but I'm totally used to it. I really like it now.
It is subtle, and I'm going to show it off on Android here. It's an app called 3D Image Live Wallpaper.
Nice.
Basically, this allows you to put any image on the backdrop. It is a live wallpaper, so you got to be okay with that. Some people find that it gives you a little bit of a battery hit. But as you can kind of see, it's very subtle, and I'm trying to avoid the light glare here. Let me see if I can. So if you see the background, how it's rotating around the icons, and you can end up seeing kind of
there
around
it
it,
is.
right?
Whoa.
Yeah, there it is.
Wow.
It gives it like a depth. Yeah. Now, so can you set your own photo, or does it have to be?
Oh yeah. You can set your own photos. So let's go in here. So we'll go wallpapers.
That's pretty cool.
And you can also change the sensitivity. So I have it set kind of mild, right?
You can make it really sensitive.
You can make it play like folk music for you. And all right, so let's see here. All right, so we've got it set here. You can use, all of the wallpapers, or you could set your own if you want to choose a custom image. I don't know what I'm going to pick here, but I'll just pick one for my library. And okay, how about this one? Because, that's some delicious looking toast here. With that, have you ever had Biscoff spread, by the way?
No.
It's a replacement for peanut butter. They basically make this by grinding up cookies.
Really?
And it is awesome.
Sounds amazing.
Yeah,
Better than
it's as
Nutella?
good as it sounds. Okay, and John, Jammer B. I know. Hey, you know what? I'm late to the game, apparently. Jammer B said we went through this a year ago. But I have some at home, and now I'm eating it all the time. All right, so I've chosen a custom image. You can change the sensitivity. So I have it set kind of moderately because I don't want it to, move around a lot. But I'll make it a little bit more drastic so that we can kind of see the effects a little bit more. A lot of other things here to kind of dial it in, but I'm not going to get all stuck in those. So if we go out,
There you go.
Whoa.
see, so
That's way more. Yeah.
It gives you the feeling like you're looking behind the icons and into the desktop. And
So with the new flat design, it's less depth, but this effect on the home screen really does give you that kind of effect, like there's layers kind of floating, and it's nice.
I can't read Biscoff's spread. Oh, now I can. No, now I can't. Oh, now I can. Okay, there you go. So there really isn't a whole lot to this, right? 3D image, live wallpaper. It's a lot of fun if you really kind of want to, if you saw that part of the iOS announcement yesterday and thought it was kind of cool, you can get it right now, $160 in the Play Store. 3D image live wallpaper.
Cool.
And it's just kind of nifty.
That's a nifty one.
Neat.
Yeah,
I like
there
it.
you go. Nifty and easy. I like easy.
All right.
All right, Ron, what you got?
My turn. So this is an app that actually I have installed on my phone, but I'm going to demo it on my tablet, but normally I'd use it on my phone. And it's funny because I actually, once again, I had another app all planned for this week, and then I came across this app this morning and remembered about a week or two ago when I was in New York City, and I was in the Upper West Side, and I parked, and then I went to Shake Shack, and then I went to my friend's house, and then we went to a movie, and then I was like, wait a minute, where did I park? So if you're in a neighborhood that you're not very familiar with, sometimes in cities such as Chicago, San Francisco, New York, Seattle, whatever, so a lot of the streets start to look the same. And sometimes it's hard to remember exactly where you are. And this app, Valet, which sells for $1.99 in the Google Play Store, caught my eye because not only is it super simple and does it really well, but it's also really, really pretty. And that's why I wanted to show it on my tablet so you can take a look and see it. So the idea being that you have it on your, so let's pretend this is my phone and we're out on the street and you go somewhere and you tap Valet and this is a great little picture. And it will use your location services on your phone to identify where you are. If you've got GPS, it's exact right down to where you're standing. And then very simply, there's a little button down here that says Park My Car, and you just hit Park My Car, and it remembers that you are parked. Once that happens, then a couple of different things you can build from there. You can go find where you're parked. So if you need a bigger map view than the one that they've shown in here to figure out how to get back to your car, it can help you with that. But what's interesting is that you can set a timer or an alarm so that if you're paying a 2-hour what's the word I'm looking for, a parking meter, you can go back and feed the meter when you have to, which comes in very handy in cities that have that.
Very nice.
You can also add notes to the location, so you can add a note and you can type in, Blue House, and give you kind of a reminder of where, kind of where you are, whatever you might need to remind you of where you're parking. And then if you're done, you can just hit X and then hit Unpark My Car. And according to the app, you are not parked. Pretty simple. Also interesting, though, is that it does use Bluetooth, and it uses its parking sensor with Bluetooth. So if you turn your Bluetooth on, it can auto park your car. So if you got Bluetooth synced if you got your device synced to your car, the car's no longer moving. It picks up on the fact that you're parked, and you don't actually need to go into the app. It will remember that you've parked based off the Bluetooth stuff. So very cool, very pretty, very simple. I dig it a lot. It was one that kind of impressed me in terms of what it can do, especially that Bluetooth kind of auto parking setting. And yeah, just a neat little Valet app. So never forget where you parked ever again. So
Excellent.
there you go, Valet,
Nice.
$1.99.
And it looks like it uses the new Google Play Services activity detection too.
It does indeed.
awesome.
That's a very good note. Yes, it does. It's fully integrated with the new Google Play services for location mapping and all that sort of stuff. So it's very cool. So it's pretty effective and cutting edge. So
I want to try that.
there you go. $1.99. It could be yours, Brian.
I already bought all the apps you guys recommended.
Oh, well, there you go.
Right
There you go.
now.
Well, I'll go ahead and say I bought the app you're about to recommend. Not an inexpensive app, but it's pretty darn cool. What do you have, Brian?
So I have Radarscope for Android. This is an app which exists on almost all the platforms now. It exists on the desktop with OS 10, as well as iOS. But I love Radarscope just because this is the real. So I used to want to be a meteorologist a long time ago, and I'm kind of a weather nerd. And in light of the recent tornadoes in the Midwest and, the plains, I thought this is an awesome app because I don't like relying on other meteorologists or, like weather reports or like the low res images that you get sort of with like your run of the mill, like weather.com or just like a Google search. And this is what those weather spotters use because you get real access to the NextRad network. You can go and select all of the data products from all of the radars and look at it on your own and sort of draw your own conclusions and play them back. And just like the power of this app is unbelievable. And I feel like I only use maybe like 50% of it. But there's like a spotter network plugin. So if you're out there looking at, like a thing, like a weather system, you can go and set tracks. If you click on the bottom there, you can see all the different things that pop up. Yeah, of course, you get all the different, like NOAA weather warnings, like tornado thing. If you tap on it, you'll see all the details. If you tap inside the little like rectangle there, it should pop up. Sometimes it doesn't. But I think if you have like location turn on, it's a little bit wonky sometimes. But again, yeah, like that, you can see basically the velocity of different particles in the air. So like which way the wind is moving, reflectivity, all the different tilts. I just love how like this is the real data and it's not an image. It's like, it's the real data. So you can go and play these back and like see where things are moving and like tracks. And for me, I live in Arizona, Southern Arizona. We get monsoons and haboobs. And I can almost always spot, like, oh, they're gonna make this a system, like say that there's a flash flood, or like when rain is really on my position, which is what I care about more. And it's just fascinating. Like if you're into that kind of thing, this is perfect. If I lived in the Midwest, or in Tornado Alley, and the threat of like an imminent tornado was like a daily thing for me, I would use this all the time. Because really it's only functional for me like in these summer months. But that's sort of my pitch, and it works on tablets as well. It's a great example of an app that scales nicely. So like there's an iPad version, for example, but you have to pay more for it. Obviously on Android, you buy the smartphone or tablet version, you get it on all your sizes. And like the desktop version is $30. But to me, I was like, even $30 is worth it. Just because it's so well presented here. There's nowhere else that it's presented as nicely, and you can pan and tilt, zoom around there, and then you get units at the bottom if you like scrub over that bar. So like all of this stuff just is exceedingly well put together. So that's Radarscope, and I just love it. Like that, and that there's just a new version that came out. This 2.0 version just came out like last week, and this developer is like constantly updating things. And I debated between this one and another app, but I guess I'll save that in case you guys ever have me back on. But
save it, hold on to
Absolutely.
it.
I love Radarscope. So
It's the passion. It's the passion that really sells the app. Loving an app like that. That's a good way to be. This is really cool.
yeah, and it's just as good on Android as it is on iOS, like, which is crazy. And I mean, it exists. Obviously, the data is only in the US. So if you're outside the US, there's no NOAA network or anything. But yeah, you can go click on it, and you're paying for this data. Like you're paying, as part of your tax dollars for this awesome network of all these radars. So it's really cool to go and view them, and you'll see them go down sometimes. Like the ones that are in red are just like down, and you can go and see the reason. And sometimes it's like, oh, there's something wrong with the radar, or like weather damage, like it blew off.
Weather was so bad we can't show you the weather.
Yeah, like Hurricane Sandy. It was just fascinating watching that roll in. And, like some of the radars did go down. And it's like there are real people out there fixing them, and you can go and see the status. So, I don't know. It's fascinating.
Awesome. So that's Radarscope, $9.99. But as you said, the web version is $30. So, you're kind of getting a deal. $9.99.
Yep.
Awesome. So, Gina, you've got quite the act to follow here.
Live up to your trend. Let's see.
I do. I know. I'm feeling a little pressure. My pick this week is called Draft, and it's $2, $2.49, $2.50, well, $2.49 to be precise. And it's a really simple text editor for your Android phone or tablet, and it's Dropbox enabled. So the reason why I'm big into plain text and particularly with Dropbox, my own app does this. And the reason why is like there's tons of apps out there to take notes. There's Keep and there's Evernote, and I actually do use Evernote for things that like have multimedia multimedia images. But for the rest of the time, I like to keep all of my sort of notes and checklists and cheat sheets in just plain text files in a folder on my computer, and I sync with Dropbox. And Draft lets me access those files and edit them in a really, really nice modern editor that can access any folder in your Dropbox, which is really nice. It supports Markdown for those of you who are like composing blog posts or writing HTML or just like the Markdown syntax. It does this beautiful Markdown preview if you want to see it. You can change the font size, the font type. You can choose different themes. There are like just enough settings to make your text editor to look the way that you want it to look without it being kind of like settings overload. Really, really simple. The layout on the tablet also looks really nice. It uses panels and just really nice, simple text editor. I used to use Epistle for this. It's just not nearly as good. Draft is definitely way better. So if you're a plain text nerd, if you love Markdown, if you've got a Dropbox account, and you like to be able to edit from anywhere, highly recommend Draft. It's $2.50. It's $2.49, which is not inexpensive, but really, really worth it if you're a Markdown / plain text nerd and you like to be able to edit stuff and then just sync to the cloud simply through Dropbox. Highly recommend it.
I actually love Draft. That's like awesome.
Yeah. I was using it before.
Oh, yeah, I love Draft. Because didn't Epistle, like the developer kind of like abandon it or stop developing it? Something happened. I'm not sure.
Yeah, something happened there. And there were things about Epistle that always sort of drove me crazy. Like I never felt like Android had a good. I use Notesy on the iOS side. I never felt like Android had like a great Dropbox enabled text editor, and Draft is really it. So I'm glad to hear that you had it installed. I think it's a particular hit with writers, especially web writers. And I'm just the type like I just keep lists and checklists and cheat sheets and things, even as a developer, as a coder, just reminders to myself of how to do certain things, and I do that all in plain text in Dropbox, and Draft helps me look that stuff up on the go, which is really nice.
I write all my articles in Markdown, so like I love having an editor that's mobile, and obviously on Android you can like use this on the Nexus 7. So I use the little keyboard sometimes, and like I wrote the Galaxy S2 review, like 50% of it on a smartphone. So there's like people are just like, that's crazy, but it's totally possible.
Absolutely.
And you can definitely do it with this app.
Yeah, especially if you've got a physical keyboard attached to a tablet, this app is great. You could write really long pieces for it, for sure.
Jerry Rigged in the chat room says, AAA team just cost me $11.60 in apps today. Thanks, guys. Nice. You're welcome. The developers thank you.
So which one didn't he buy? There we go.
Well, let's break it apart.
Do the most expensive app. Like, what's the most expensive app? We were discussing this before, but like, there's got to be a $200 app on there.
On Android somewhere?
Yeah, somewhere.
Yeah.
Most expensive.
There must be. You work on that, Ron. Ron is our
iOS. There was that like diamond.
Yeah, there was that. There was like something like that.
$999.
Yeah, it was. That's the one that I remember, but I don't think that there is one like that on Android.
There's no date on this article.
And it looks pretty old by the screenshots.
It really does.
But yeah, okay. So there are some. I don't know if they're still in the Play Store, but
yeah, let's see if I can.
I'm sure somebody's going to email us, and I implore you to aaa@twit.tv.
In the Google Play Store, there's an app called the most expensive app of all.
Oh, because that is the cutoff. I think Play Store has a cutoff of $200, right?
And it is $200. Here, I'll throw it into the doc so you can see it.
I want to see this.
There you go, Brian. It's in the doc there next to the poll.
Oh, I see it.
And
wow, it is a diamond.
Yep, there you go.
Wow.
So for $200.
The most.
If you have that, you should do the Gigantify and make it just like your whole home screen.
That's a great idea. Then it'd be worth that much more.
Installs 1 to 5.
You should install it on the $10,000 Android phone. What was the name of that phone? That luxury phone
or whatever.
That's right.
What was it called? Oh,
I can't remember. But Yeah, no, you're right. This should just, if you're buying a phone for that much, clearly this should just be pre-installed. You should get it, for free in the price because you're going to want an app like this on your really expensive.
Vertutie. Yeah. The Vertutie.
The Vertu, yes. Yes.
Yeah.
There we go. All right, well, maybe we don't recommend that you spend $200 on that
I would
app.
not. I'm not going to bring that to the arena. I like the crazy apps. I don't like it that much.
Yeah, well, you'd have to buy it in order to put your money where your mouth is.
Exactly.
But we did bring you 4 apps that are more price conscious, and you can vote for those at aaapoll.com/113, AAApoll.com/113. Let us know which is your favorite app that we covered this week, and it's always fun to take a look at early reports. 3D image, live wallpaper, but there's only 5 votes at this point. Radarscope.
Yeah, something tells me my streak's about to end.
We'll 3D image live
never know.
wallpaper.
Draft is awesome. That's an awesome app to put in the arena, I think.
I hope so. I hope it is very much like a web writer, like a blogger thing to the two, And Markdown is a little bit like, it's awesome, but it's like a very specific use case. I don't know.
Right.
These other ones are really, really good too. It's a good arena this week.
Excellent.
Anybody that doesn't understand Markdown, I just tell them it's like commenting markup. Like you already know it, you just don't know what it's called. If you ever comment anywhere, you probably already speak Markdown. Like if you've coded a link. So
it's true.
It's pretty easy.
That's a good explanation.
All right, there you go. I don't know how often I write in Markdown, not at all. So I guess I kind of understand what you're saying. But
I found a legit.
Still kind of lost on me.
I found a legit expensive app.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I put it into the chat, Brian. If you want to pull it up, it's called PC Mapper DB, and it's $149, and it's the extension to PC Mapper Lite, enabling complete editing of ESRI shapefiles on Android devices.
Oh, wow!
So there you go.
ESRI shapefiles. Is this like a
mapping?
Oh, it's a mapping editor. Okay, so it's like a specialized mapping editor.
It's had 10 to 50 installs.
So
it's not rated too good either.
Here, wait, hang on.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
This is like a spectrum analyzer on iOS that was like $200, which didn't make any sense. But it was like an FFT app, and it just like super basic, but they had marked it up really high. Didn't make any sense. I remember that.
149.
Yep, there it is. PC Mapper DB, 149. It's been installed 10 to 50 times, so there are at least 50 really obsessive mapper people. So
or 10.
1.5 average rater.
Or
two
11,
ratings.
Yeah. It doesn't look like it's been updated very, very recently, or
gets very good reviews.
What I love is that it's got 2 ratings, like one of 1 star and 2 stars. Someone's like, "Damn, this app! I thought it would give me my ESRI file editing."
Well,
but it doesn't.
This app costs as much as some phones, so it better be awesome, and it better be supported forever.
Good times.
There we go. All right, AAApoll.com/113 for the 4 apps we talked about today. Next week, stoked to welcome to the show Bill Phillips and Brian Hardy. They're both authors of a new book, Android Programming, The Big Nerd Ranch Guide. There might even be a little bit of a giveaway next week. If that is enticing, you should come back. But as for this week, Brian Klug, we are so stoked and thrilled to have you on the show today. Thank you so much for coming on with us today.
Thanks for having me on. This was awesome.
Absolutely. You are welcome back anytime. This is kind of your opportunity to plug whatever you have going on, talk about any stories you have coming up, or really anything. It's up to you.
There's not a lot to talk about right now. I mean, we had I.O., we had WWDC. Stay tuned for the full Shield review. That was just kind of a hands-on, but it was a little bit longer. Looking forward to the S4 Active. I don't know. I got the Korean Galaxy S4 with the AT&T LTE bands. So, it's got the quad-core, or I guess 8-core, Exynos 5, and that's kind of cool. I'll be reviewing that.
Nice.
I think there's some other stuff coming up, but it's always difficult to kind of figure out when the reviews are going to land. But, just follow OnTech if you can, and there's always mobile stuff that's related that's going on. So
Absolutely.
I know Anand will be in London doing his thing, and then there's some other stuff coming up, which is cool in the SoC space. But next week is busy.
Excellent. Keep tuned to anandtech.com, ANAND tech.com to find all of that stuff. Brian, thanks again.
Thanks for having me.
Good job, Brian.
What you got, Ron?
What you got? I got stuff going on. Go to about.me/RonXO. You can find all my social links on Google Plus and Twitter and Facebook and all that fun stuff. And by day, I help make comic books over at imagecomics.com. So go check out Image Comics and some cool digital stuff coming in July. So stay tuned.
Radical. And for you, Gina, what you got?
You can see everything I'm working on at ginatrapani.org. And if you feel like you need to get organized, check out my app. It's todotext.com, todotxt.com. It's available for Android and iOS as well. And I co-host another show on this network on Twit, This Week in Google, which airs on Wednesdays at 1 p.m. Pacific. I'll be on tomorrow with Leo and with Jeff, and I'm sure that we'll be talking about some WWDC stuff we talked about today. I'm sure we'll cover Prism and other sort of googly news. So I hope you'll join us then.
Excellent. And Brian Burnett, thanks for stepping in for Chad this week. Really appreciate
thanks, Brian.
it. Woo!
Yeah.
Boom.
Good job.
Thank you to both Brians.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
Double Brians.
Ron just totally touch-screened my screen, and now I don't have the things that I need.
Pixel. That's the
No, the problem with the Pixel is your finger. You can find me at about.me/Jason Howell. Follow my musical exploits, yellowgoldmusic.com. Otherwise, that is it for this week. Thank you so much for tuning in or downloading it, probably more likely downloading it. You can leave us a voicemail at 347-SHOW-AAA. You can always leave us an email at AAA@twit.tv. If you put a link into that email, it magically becomes a video mail. We like those too. Twitter, we are at Android Show. Google Plus, we're all about Android on there as well, as a really nice, thriving community there, full of other fans of the show that are just talking Android. Check it out. Show notes can always be found at twit.tv/AAA, and you can also find our past episodes there, as well as YouTube, iTunes, all over the map. And finally, you can catch us live every Tuesday starting at 5 p.m. Pacific, live.twit.tv. That's it for this week. We'll see you next week on another episode of All About Android.